The old town of Black Hollow had always been shrouded in mystery. Deep in its outskirts, hidden beneath the shadow of gnarled oaks and whispering pines, stood an abandoned greenhouse, its glass panels fractured and vines creeping through the cracks. No one dared to go near it. Stories of strange growths and vanished wanderers haunted the town like an unshakable specter. But when biologist Dr. Elias Mercer arrived to study the rare flora of Black Hollow, he dismissed the warnings as mere superstition. That was his first mistake. Elias had always been a man of science, believing only in the tangible world. Myths and superstitions were nothing more than the desperate attempts of old towns to preserve their mysteries. However, he couldn't deny the eeriness of the town itself. The villagers rarely spoke to outsiders, and when they did, their voices were laced with cryptic warnings. "Stay away from the greenhouse," an old man muttered to him on his first night in town. Elias had merely chuckled, ignoring the elderly man's trembling fingers and sunken eyes. He was here for research, not ghost stories. But the night before he was set to explore the greenhouse, something strange happened. The wind outside his rented cabin howled unnaturally, almost as if whispering his name. The trees cast shifting shadows, twisting unnaturally under the pale moonlight. The air smelled damp, like rotting leaves mixed with something metallic. He brushed it off his nerves, but as he lay in bed, he felt a cold sensation creeping up his spine, a feeling he hadn't experienced since childhood. Fear. The next morning, Elias, along with his assistant Clara Evans, ventured into the forgotten greenhouse. The door creaked open with a groan, revealing an overgrown interior. Vines dangled from the ceiling, thick roots snaked across the cracked floor, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth. The deeper they walked, the more unsettling the space became. Clara hesitated, glancing at Elias. "It feels alive." Elias ignored her unease and pressed forward. That was when they saw it. At the heart of the greenhouse, bathed in slanted rays of golden sunlight, was a plant unlike any other. It pulsed as though it had a heartbeat, its petals shifting through an unnatural spectrum of colors. The stem was a deep obsidian black, and its veins glowed faintly beneath its surface. Nearby, skeletal remains were entwined with thick vines, their bony fingers clutching at the air as though they had tried to claw their way free. Despite the ominous signs, Elias stepped closer, entranced. His fingers brushed against the petals, and the moment he did, the temperature in the room plummeted. A strange, sharp whisper filled the air, and the greenhouse seemed to exhale. Something inside Elias screamed for him to run, but he didn't. He plucked a sample and placed it carefully inside a glass container. The moment he did, the air grew dense, and the silence around them became deafening. That night, Elias lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep eluded him, his mind filled with images of the flower shifting in its container. He had examined it earlier, noting how it responded to light, how its petals seemed to shiver under his gaze. But the most unsettling discovery had been the way it pulsed, syncing with his own heartbeat, as if it was connected to him. When he finally drifted into unconsciousness, the nightmares came. He dreamt of twisting roots burrowing into his flesh, slithering through his veins like parasites. He saw himself standing in the greenhouse, but his reflection in the glass was not human. His skin had darkened, his eyes glowed with an eerie green hue, and his mouth twisted into something that was no longer his own. He woke with a gasp, sweat clinging to his body. The room was silent, but something felt wrong. Looking down at his arm, his breath caught in his throat. A rash had appeared, branching out in intricate patterns, resembling the twisting veins of a leaf. Clara noticed his trembling hands the next morning. "Elias, are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. He quickly pulled down his sleeve and forced a smile. "I'm fine. just a bit of an allergic reaction. That was his second mistake. The rashes worsened. By the third day, small thorn-like protrusions emerged from his skin. He found himself scratching at them absent-mindedly, only to feel sharp pain as his nails scraped against something hard, almost like bark. The sensation was foreign. Wrong. His reflection in the mirror showed something even more unsettling. His pupils were dilating and retracting in unnatural patterns, as if struggling to maintain their human shape. Meanwhile, Clara experienced her own horrors. Nightmares plagued her, visions of vines creeping into her room, coiling around her limbs, whispering in a language she didn't understand. The town itself seemed to darken. Plants in the village began to wither or twist into grotesque shapes. The townspeople whispered as she and Elias passed, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and suspicion. Then came the voices. Elias first heard them when he was alone in the lab, analyzing the sample. They slithered into his mind like tendrils of smoke, whispering secrets in a tongue both foreign and familiar. "Grow," they urged. "Become one." And for the first time, Elias felt the terrifying pull of something beyond his comprehension. The greenhouse burned to ash, and with it, the curse was seemingly lifted. Elias, though alive, was forever changed. His body scarred, his mind haunted by the echoes of the plant's whispers. Black Hollow remained silent about the incident, wary of tempting fate again. But deep in the forest, in a forgotten corner where embers still smoldered, a single untouched seed nestled into the earth, waiting, growing and biding its time. The nightmare was far from over.